This is a Fox News alert. A State Department briefing underway, responding to questions about ties with the Clinton Foundation. This as we learn of another crack in the dam for Hillary Clinton. Let's listen.
Evidence of the way the process works, and in that, any Secretary of State has aides who are getting emails or contacts by a broad range of individuals and organizations.
So as far as you're concerned, what these emails, like the ones that just were released today, don't show anything new? This is old news. You guys have already looked into this and decided that there wasn't any problem?
I mean, of course, we're always assessing new emails as they come in, so I don't want to make it look like we just disregarded this. I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Well, go ahead and finish.
No, I just said we'll always assess new emails as they come in, but
these aren't new emails.
I understand that.
But I mean, you guys, you're confident, or you know, that the emails that were released today have been looked at by people whose job it is to look into these things and decide whether or not there was a violation or an appearance.
Yes, that is my understanding. Yes.
And nothing.
Again, I stand by what I just said, which is that there was no. Yeah.
How do you address the inference?
I mean, James, the inference that is left in Judicial Watch's statements on this, that meetings were granted to certain people who were also significant donors to or partners with the Clinton Foundation, and they leave the inference that people were getting meetings or getting consideration at a minimum for meetings because they were big donors to the foundation.
I mean, I guess I would just once again emphasize that there wasn't a single channel for access to the Secretary of State, then Secretary of State Clinton. And for senior aides in the department at that time to have, to have connections with the Clinton Foundation, which, by the way, was working on, for example, Haiti relief post-earthquake, pretty significant role in that, in fact. Only speaks to the fact that, these were important people who had reason to convey information to the Secretary. There was nothing that we have seen that implied any kind of untoward relationship.
But my question goes really to the fund. I mean, it's clear in the American domestic political tradition, it is completely explicit. You pay X thousands of dollars and you get to go to a reception with the president or a candidate for the presidency. And, I've been at fundraisers standing on the outside of them where there are different levels of money you cough up, and that governs how much access you get and whether you get a photo with them or not and so on. And so the question I want you to address is, Judicial Watch is leaving this inference there that you pay to the foundation and you get to see the Secretary of State. Can you say, no, that's just not true? That's not how it works?
What I would say is that we have no clear sign that that was the case. We've seen no evidence that that was the case.
Thank you.
Yep. Please, I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
That's all right. In a related vein, and I should say to Arshad that in fairness to Judicial Watch, I think their public relations people would be very displeased if the record were allowed to stand, suggesting that they had simply left such things to inference. They make it rather explicit how they feel about it.
I stand corrected.
Fox News has obtained and shared with your office roughly 180 pages of call logs from the office of Cheryl Mills, covering a 2-year period when she was Chief of Staff to Secretary Clinton. As you have seen, the individual who left the greatest number of messages for Ms. Mills in that period of time by an exponential order was Laura Graham, then the Chief Operating Officer for the Clinton Foundation, close to 150 in the 2-year time frame. As you know, this evidence arises at a time when many questions have been raised about whether the Clinton State Department, and specifically Ms. Mills, maintained an appropriate distance from the Clinton Foundation. Can you tell us why Ms. Graham and Ms. Mills were in such close and constant contact?
Well, a couple of things to say about this. First of all, just to step back and address what James is referring to. These are logs that were, in effect, spreadsheets that were maintained by who was then an assistant to Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills to track, as you can imagine, the large volume of incoming calls that she received about a range of issues. And these documents were released through the FOIA process, I think back in April. So it's no surprise, of course, as I just think I said to Arshad, that State Department officials are in contact with a range of outside individuals and organizations, including nonprofits, NGOs, and of course think tanks and others. And that's certainly true with Ms. Mills. I would also state, and again, I don't know if I'm inferring from your question. I wouldn't want to do that, but Secretary Clinton's ethics agreement at the time did not preclude other State Department officials from engaging with or having contact with the Clinton Foundation. So you're right. There are these, I guess, approximately 150 messages. I can't give you a readout of every one of those messages, or every one of those calls, rather, and in fact, how many of the calls were returned or connected. All I can say, and I would go back to, again, what I just said, explained to Arshad is, I would note that the State Department at the time was, and certainly Cheryl Mills individually, was a coordinating hub for U.S. and international efforts to relief efforts in the wake of the 2011 Haiti earthquake. And as I said, Cheryl Mills personally led those efforts throughout her tenure here. And former President Clinton also played a role as a coordinator for relief efforts in his role as the U.S. Special Envoy, or UN Special Envoy for Haiti. Again, I don't want to speculate, but that could well be the reason why there were these calls, simply coordinating on what was one of the premier or most significant foreign relations issues of the time.
On one occasion, Ms. Graham left a message from Ms. Mills referencing, quote, our boss, unquote. Did Ms. Graham and Ms. Mills have the same boss?
I can't speculate as to who they were referring to. I just don't know.
I didn't ask you to do that. I just asked, did they have the same boss?
They did not have the same boss. I can answer that.
With these call logs fresh in mind, can you still assure the American people that the Clinton State Department maintained at all points an appropriate distance from the Clinton Foundation?
Again, we have seen no evidence of any behavior, any relations with the Clinton Foundation that weren't completely above board. And in this case, it's likely that what they were dealing with during many of these calls was the immediate aftermath of the Haiti earthquake.
And finally, since we just touched on Ms. Abedin, some unrelated questions about her. The New York Post has been reporting on the presence of Huma Abedin for more than a decade on the masthead of an Islamic journal that published some fairly vile things, including blaming the U.S. for 9/11, and an article by Ms. Abedin's mother in which she wrote that the, quote, empowerment of women does more harm than benefit, unquote. When Ms. Abedin was cleared to work here in the Department of State, one of the 2 jobs she held down during her tenure here, was Ms. Abedin's association with this journal known to the secretary or to anyone else in this building?
James, I don't have an immediate answer for you on that. I haven't seen these reports, to be honest. What I would say is that we wouldn't normally talk about someone's clearance process, except to say that having gone through security clearance process and considering what the level of clearance she would have needed for the job that she held, I can assure you that she was, like any individual would be, fully vetted. But I can't speak to these specific allegations. I just don't.
The presence of a State Department employee or a prospective employee on the masthead of a journal that is published and disseminated would typically be the kind of thing that those who do the vetting.
All right, we want to bring in Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. She is live in Washington as we've been monitoring the State Department briefing today. Catherine, a lot of tough questions and a lot of hesitation from Mark Toner.
Well, that's right, Shannon. Really three major takeaways. One, we've got these newly released emails from Judicial Watch that relate to Clinton aide Huma Abedin. She has been the focus of a congressional investigation because she wore multiple hats when she was at the State Department, a State Department employee, also an employee for the Clinton Foundation, and then also this Clinton-aligned consulting group called Teneo. And the question is whether this has been a conflict of interest. So we got to some of that at the briefing. The second is about the Clinton Foundation and whether one could draw the conclusion that when the Crown Prince of Bahrain gives a $32 million donation to the Clinton Foundation, this really paved the way for an in-person meeting with Secretary of State Clinton. The State Department spokesman Mark Toner just said that they did not see evidence of that being the case, though one has to wonder what evidence they would need to reach that conclusion at the State Department, because unfortunately, one of the things that we have seen in our ongoing reporting is that the State Department has not been sort of a neutral arbiter of the facts always when it comes to the Clinton emails and the foundation. They've really almost become her defender-in-chief in many respects.
All right, Catherine Herridge reporting live on what we are seeing out of the State Department now. We are going to get reaction now with Congressman Jason Chaffetz, who is joining us now in studio, chairman of the Oversight Committee. What do you make of these new revelations and the tough time that Toner is having in trying to answer these questions about unearthed emails we haven't seen before, emails suggesting that the access to the Secretary of State was through the Clinton Foundation, and by the way, allegations that she and the Clinton Foundation are denying?
Well, he can't definitively define something because he's left in the dark. And look, when this originally started, Hillary Clinton created this system and this relationship with herself, something that the Inspector General found so problematic that he referred the matter to the FBI for criminal investigation. And so he's left not being able to definitively defend her or tell the American people that the State Department assets, the assets of the United States of America, were not commingled with both the Clinton Foundation and who knows what else.
Okay, now to the issue of the FBI. You have authored a letter with Congressman Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee asking and pointing out FBI Director James Comey's statements against Mrs. Clinton's statements and saying there are factual discrepancies and asking whether a perjury investigation will be initiated. Do you address that to the U.S. Attorney in D.C.? Where's it going to go? Anywhere? Is it a waste of time, as supporters of Mrs. Clinton say? It's a witch hunt that wastes government time and resources. It
was pretty stunning that the FBI director came before the members of the House and said that during their year-long investigation of the lies and what was going on with Hillary Clinton's emails, that they never looked at Hillary Clinton's testimony under oath. I mean, that was pretty stunning. It's public record. You raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but the FBI didn't look at that. So evidently they needed a permission slip from Congress, which we've now given them, and we expect them to follow up on that, because clearly what she said under oath and what she did are two totally different things. To me, that's lying and misleading to Congress.
Is there any sort of timeline on that, or when do you expect that you'll get a reply about whether it's going to be investigated?
Sooner rather than later. What the FBI gave us on Tuesday was in a secret format down in the SCIF, the Secure Communication Facility there in the House of Representatives, are the 302s, the background information, but chock full of redactions. Even I, as the chairman of the Oversight Committee, there's so much classified information there, something that's so sensitive that I can't even look at it. I don't even have the high enough security clearance. At the same time, Hillary Clinton's still telling that everybody that, there were no emails that I sent, no emails that I received that contained classified information.
Well, her camp keeps saying if the Justice Department's going to release it at all, they want it to go to everybody, including me, average person with no national security clearance. Would it be helpful? Are you saying that what they're producing is so redacted that it wouldn't really make sense to the average person?
It is terribly irresponsible for Hillary Clinton to suggest that everything should be released, because it puts people's lives in danger. She still doesn't get it. What we're asking the FBI in a letter today to do is create an unclassified version and then release that to the public. That, to me, it's available on the Freedom of Information Act. Let's go ahead and get that out there sooner rather than later. And if If it's true that the Hillary Clinton campaign and she personally wants that information out there, then let's do it responsibly, not do it the way she wants to do it, which is just release everything. That puts people's lives in danger.
Well, some people question whether they really do want the full release. We'll see. I want to talk through at least a couple of these emails that are surfacing today. The Judicial Watch is as a portion of their work. We have Doug Band, obviously a very close confidant of President Clinton, helped him form the Clinton Global Initiative connected to the Clinton Foundation, sending an email to Huma Abedin saying CP, meaning Crown Prince, we believe, of Bahrain, in tomorrow to Friday, asking to see her, good friend of ours. And then he asked to see HRC Thursday and Friday through normal channels. I asked, and she said she doesn't want to commit to anything. Longer that continues on there. Then Huma Abedin at some point responds and says, offering him tomorrow for a meeting with HRC. If you see, let him know. We have reached out through official channels. And apparently the story goes, when they reached out through official channels, they couldn't get to her. When they reached out through the Clinton Foundation channels, they could get to her, and that he'd made a very sizable commitment or donation.
Well, this has happened by the millions of dollars, and that begs the question, and I think it's a legitimate question. They've created this problem, the Clintons did, by having this entity, and now as James Rosen is reporting through the good work of Judicial Watch and others, that here are 150 messages left by the Clinton Foundation to the chief of staff, to Secretary Clinton. I mean, come on, it doesn't take but a third grader to add this up and say, wow, you give tens of millions of dollars through the foundation, then you get the access that you want. I think that's a legitimate question that even the State Department spokesperson, when given an opportunity, could not refute. He
had a tough time with it. But again, through her campaign and the official channels, they're saying there's nothing there, that there is no connection.
And she should have a press conference. She's been 261 days without a press conference. This is what happens when you have a candidate that just hides and doesn't answer questions. That's what happens, is you're left with more and more questions. She needs to have a press conference and let the media ask her.
We would love to. We have a lot of questions. We'd love to see that. Yeah. Chairman, good to see you.
Thanks
for coming in today. All right, as the